The Opel Ampera-e, the first electric vehicle from Opel in the collaboration with the GM, with the Chevrolet Bolt. The full review is today on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars with Thomas. We're going to take a detailed look on exterior, interior and of course the electric driving experience. We're also going to talk about Norway, the El Dorado at the moment for electric mobility, where we are here today testing this very vehicle. So a lot of interesting insight in electric mobility itself is coming up, and of course special here with the Opel Ampera-e, because so far no one has brought this range, it is promising, to this price. All the details now on Autogefühl in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! The Opel Ampera-e has nothing to do with the Ampera. It's a completely different model and it's a pure electric vehicle platform. And in the front it draws a very friendly face, that's for sure, and a van style atmosphere, we could call it that way, because for those fully electric vehicles they do not need very long hoods, as you don't have to store any big combustion engines right there. And well, this will be a look for a lot of new electric vehicles to come for sure, so you have to get used to it, I think. Color, by the way, Glory Red, or Carmine it's called in Germany. And the first focusing markets will be Norway, with over 4,000 pre-orders so far, already before the car was presented. And then Germany, Switzerland and Netherlands, and then more and more markets will come. 4.16 m or 13.6 is the total length. We have 17-inch rims. This one is the so-called first edition with all the equipment you can possibly get. Not a real clever choice, I will soon tell you why in the interior. And the defining design element is here. This line starts at the headlights and goes all over the vehicle, also makes this flying roof shape because we have split right here. So overall it really looks like the car would be put in two halves, like a sandwich basically, and again has this van style shape, but it will offer us a lot of room on the interior, I can promise you already so far. What is also interesting that this vehicle here, price-wise, has a very important information. Of course, in Germany it will start about 39,000 euros. That's 4,000 euros more than a Volkswagen e-Golf or a BMW i3. That is, you know, it does offer more range. How much more? We'll soon talk about that. But of course, you know, it's critical when this car is more expensive than some of the other competitors. However, you know, question is, how important is the range for you? Also looking at some of the competitors, you know, BMW i3, Volkswagen e-Golf, Renault Zoe and also the Nissan Leaf. What about the weight? It's about 1,600 kilograms. That's something about like the Golf has. 300 kilos lighter is the BMW i3 because of the carbon fiber chassis. Here a more conservative layout. And about 430 kilograms of that is the battery, and that is placed right there, but you know, in the middle. So, and this also accounts for a rather sporty driving feeling for the most pure electric vehicles, because the center of gravity is then also very low, and that is also good for a sporty ride. A contemporary glass design also at the rear, quite fitting here because we're at the moment also just right behind us in Norway, some glass handcraft is being made. And the lights here, whereas in the front we got bike xenon headlights, in the rear they come with LED design. And what is very interesting about the rear lights, they will flash if you are in those recuperation modes. Going to talk more about that when we drive the car, but that's a very important aspect. I think every car, as soon as you go into these recuperation modes, there also has to be the brake flashing lights that the driver behind you actually knows that you are reducing your speed. So what do you think about the design, about the Opel Ampera-e or the Chevrolet Bolt as well? Put me your opinion in the comments. Charging in the left front of the vehicle, then with the normal household plug, which leads to this plug then, or the Type 2 cable, or then also the DC charging for those quick charging stations. Everything is possible. You just need to have the infrastructure at home or with the public infrastructure, but I think the one at home is more important. And now to the engine. While it starts to have a mix between snow and rain, that's spring in Norway. We take a look at the engine, and interesting thing is, in general, it has a power output of 204 horsepower, and you have the instant torque with electric vehicles, and so here also great acceleration figures, even to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. You got about 7.3 seconds, and even more important, to 50 kilometers an hour, it is 3.2 seconds. So at the traffic light you can really fight against sports cars. And again, the battery, you can't see it right now. You could just see the engine parts, electric engine parts and so on. The battery that is placed in the bottom has, in general, can have a 60 kilowatt hours of the power density or power capacity, and most of the competitors are below 40 kilowatt hours, and that will give an official range of 520 kilometers in this European cycle, but it's not really realistic. If you deduct 1/3 of it, you'll end up with 350 kilometers an hour, and that's really comparable to Tesla and above the realistic figures of, for example, the BMW i3 or the e-Golf. And yeah, maybe we should continue on then with the interior details. But yeah, it's fun for you to watch for sure, but not very pleasant to shoot, but somehow indeed fun. Yeah, let's go to the interior. Cockpit overview. You see that the defining element is this round shape right there with the 10.2 inch screen. So a really good size for a screen, also that is here in this widescreen format. At the moment we see the map that is also been done with the infotainment system that is mirrored with the smartphone. Soon more details to that. In general, you can see you have some interesting design elements. For example, here at the right side, you have an interesting structure right there. That looks really good and also feels good. On the top, they also have just hard plastics. That should have been a little bit better, probably. Also digital instruments, then they come with 8-inch screen. Soon more details to that too. The steering wheel is rather compact. You will have a shifting lever basically on the left side of the steering wheel, which you can recuperate. More details to that when we drive the car. Then there are some plastic buttons, but behind this rubber pad here, it looks like like a camera where you protect it against water, for example. Not the best feeling, but it's at least interesting. Let's call it that way. And if you move on further down, we have a shifting lever where you can go to the D mode or later on to the L mode for more recuperation. We talk about that. You push it forward to the neutral or forward and left then for the reverse gear. Electric park brake. In front of that we have beverage holders, which are not really adaptive. What is interesting that because we have nowhere in a middle tunnel really, we have also in the front there, we have a lot of room. You can put stuff there. There's another charger, another storage space. So in the front here, you have really a lot of space. Also for inductive charging, you can use your phone. Can put it right here next to USB sockets also. So 2 USB sockets in the front. And then under the armrest, you can put the smartphone too. Have the cable right here that doesn't get squished, and more space. So I thought about a lot of room where to put things actually, and together with the USB ports, I'll soon show you in the rear, 4 USB ports, so that's really up to date. The digital instruments are clear to read. They focus on the speed and on the range we have left. But you can also adjust them. For example, also have a stopwatch in there. I'm not sure what for. And then you also can connect the phone here or see the information about that. Also switch the view, for example, how you want to have it designed, like this, for example. So you have some things you can work with basically. And they come from standard equipment too. The knobs in the lower part here, you can still control this manually, for example, temperature and stuff. It won't have such a big effect how you set the temperature if you leave the separate heating and AC off, because this car does not generate so much waste heat anyway. If you put heat and AC on, then you can really cool and heat, but it will also use energy for sure. But you can also put the whole heating out. So it's a mix between the touchscreen elements and the still normal button elements right there. Sport mode, by the way, will increase the throttle input a little bit. For the infotainment system, I think it's a consequent solution because they really said people are using their own smartphones and we don't need a redundant huge infotainment system. So we just do this home button. And then we have some information from the car itself, for example, about the energy stuff. And I mean, most of the time you would just go to the, I'm not Adam, by the way, but that's how it's called here. You would just go to the normal CarPlay mode. And well, let's go back again. Why is it not connected? There we are. So we are back in the map. You see it works pretty well. You have to have an internet connection for that. That's for sure. And then you have this normal Apple CarPlay view, like here for messages and music and phone. So if you have a good GPS with the car itself, then it makes sense to use it of the car. If you don't have such a system like here, just with the Apple CarPlay connection or Android Auto, then it also makes sense to use the smartphone inbuilt maps. So why not? And here another visualization where you can see where the battery is actually placed. And finally the rear view camera, which doesn't have the best resolution, but it's also displayed on a very huge screen, you have to say. And how do you sit in this vehicle? Rather upright, rather high. So you have a good overview to the front and also a pretty relaxed seating position. The only thing is that those seats here, they are not that wide. So if you're rather tall, they could be a little bit longer and wider actually. I already realized it at the motor show. I'm 1m86 or 6'1", and you see headroom wise, there's plenty of space, and that is a scheme for the whole car. You do have more space on the inside than you would expect on the outside. So internally, looking at their vehicles, they say, and that's actually true, that this one has the exterior size rather of an Opel Corsa, but the interior size of an Opel Astra, and that's really true. The steering column, by the way, can be moved right there. Strange noises sometimes, right? But generally works in all directions, and the seat control is manual front and back, and also you can pump it up like this, or also change the rear. And in general, you can see those ones here are at the moment the optional animal skin surfaces, which of course do not make any sense for an electric vehicle, because an electric vehicle is supposed to be sustainable, which those surfaces are not. This is included in this first edition. However, the base version of the Ampera-e comes with fabric seats, and of course that makes way more sense, both for sustainability and also for your climate comfort when sitting in summer, both and in winter. And let's get in the rear. And this is the real strength of the Opel Ampera-e. Because first of all, they've used quite slim seats, and that leaves a lot of knee room for a car that is not that much more longer than 4 meters, and that's really a good result. In the rear you sit relatively high, that will be good for children. Headroom wise, when I really sit upright, it still works for me. 1.90 m or 6'2" would probably then touch the ceiling. So, but that's rather because the rear seats are pretty high. Isofix fixations on the outside seats each, then for child seats, so you can very well get along with that. In general, I mean, why not? You know, as tall person, you sit relatively close to the ceiling, but in general, you have a lot of room here in the back. Also, on the 5th seat, you can, well, it's a little bit harder here in the middle, but there's no middle tunnel, so you can also sit right there. And also, there are 2 more USB supplies than in the rear. That's a handy solution. And well, with those floor mats here, there's just one floor mat for the whole rear. On the one hand, it looks good and it also leaves you a lot of room. Then again, if you want to take them out for cleaning purposes, it's a really tough thing to do, because you have to, you know, fold it in one piece, and then here already, you know, the dirt is on there, and you have to really pay attention that the dirt doesn't fall all over off in the vehicle. So probably here it's easier maybe not to take out the floor mats and just, you know, vacuum clean them and always leave it in that place. And that's probably the easier solution. You can also flip the seats from here. And by the way, those head restraints here, this is also a good solution for visibility. You can fold them up, you know, that you can really sit on them, or fold them back again. So depending on if someone's here or if it's just better for the driver, view to the back, like this. Also top tether point right here. You can also fold down some beverage holders, and this one here will be the other 2/3 split. And it's also better when you flip the seats from here. We can't reach for them so well from the trunk. Let's open the trunk, and if you flip the seats, you can score over 1,200 liters of capacity. That's the setup at the moment. You can see when just the trunk area is being used and we left the luggage in here, they can see what kind of things do fit in there. And then you can also flip the seats to see reaching over here is basically possible, but not the most handy thing. And then you can flip the rest of the seats right there. So, belt, there we go. So, and I can also put out the trolley here that you can actually look through, and this leaves you a lot of flexibility. So overall, actually quite good. And then you can also, you know, below this cover here, this cover is placed that you have an even loading area. Everything here is pretty thick, maybe a lot of some spaces here a little bit wasted, and below this cover here you can find the charging cables. And so our info to the electric mobility market in Norway, which is really leading worldwide. Of course, there are more electric vehicles in China in total numbers, but here Norway has a record that already about 1/3 of the new vehicles are registered just electric vehicles. And it has something to do that normal vehicles are so super expensive because there's a luxury tax and a high value-added tax, Mehrwertsteuer in Germany. And then also, you know, the running costs, the running taxes are quite high then too. And then it all adds up. And if you compare other markets here, a normal car can cost over 10,000 euros more. But then the value-added tax and this luxury tax, that's all gone then if you buy an electric vehicle. And therefore here it can make a lot of financial sense to go for an electric vehicle, all other factors aside. Then you also have special lanes, for example, that you can use bus or taxi lanes where you can go with the electric vehicle past the traffic, special parking spots inside the city, so there are even more benefits then. And the government has spent over 2 billion already on this issue, or 2 billion euros or dollars. And the question is, will they still do it in the future? But what is sure that the commitment will in this case remain the same, that from 2025 they're committed only to have new electric vehicles for new car registrations. Of course, it will take some time to increase the total percentage of the cars that are existing overall in Norway, but from the new cars that are coming on the market, this one is really set all on electric mobility. Not necessarily just with the battery, maybe also with fuel cell in the future, who knows. But we see one of the biggest commitments here in Norway for sure, and more countries are keeping up. And that's why, for example, also an Opel Ampera-e is about 300,000 Norsk krona here. So it's not too much, but we're 33,000 euros then calculated if you take the tax benefits into account. And also in Germany, this one here is now 4,000 euros less, as you also get the governmental plus manufacturer benefits then. So including the benefits, this vehicle price would be then 35,000 euros in Germany at the moment. Let's go for a short city special in Oslo. So welcome to Oslo. Here the famous castle at the coastal line. In front of us is the Rathuset, so the city hall. And when cruising in city at slower speeds, for example, you can very well see, for example, how the car behaves and so on. Not even sure if I'm allowed to drive here. Just to give you an impression here. And you're so silent, and people outside will hear a short noise actually that you actually realized overall. Turning circular now. See, it's very small. Cruise around with it very well. So, and Opel developed this alongside with some associations for blind people, that they really can differentiate that this is a unnatural noise and that there's an electric vehicle approaching. And it works up to a speed of 30 kilometers, and you hear just something like this, and then you can differentiate it. At the moment you can also deactivate it, but quite soon it will be mandatory to have such a system in the vehicle. And other than that, silently cruising around, this is of course very relaxing, as you don't hear any sound. Nissan Leaf here, next electric vehicle. But you also have always instant torque. And for example, if you want to get along from traffic light or maybe some overtaking maneuver, this goes very fast. And for example, just here in the corner, fast, and there, see, another vehicle coming, happens in the city, and accelerate again. Oh, there's another one coming right here. Then you see that happens in the city, braking, accelerating, and here just, from standstill to 30, it's like in no time, like bam, and 30, that was 40 already, even more than allowed here. So that works very fast. Recuperation modes, I will tell you more later on when we go to the countryside. I usually leave it in the D mode with the low recuperation, so not too much recuperation. Look at that. Nissan Leaf, Kia Soul, BMW i3, Tesla 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Tesla, 6 Tesla, 4 Kia Soul, 6 Nissan Leafs, 4 BMW i3. Totally crazy here. And I've told you earlier about Norway as the hub of electric mobility, and this is here, close some loading stations there were also, and also special parking spots you have, and never seen so many electric vehicles, in actually at once. So that's a pretty special thing. It's really good feeling to drive through the city and just having this silent mode or this stealth mode. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit a pity that they add an artificial sound then. On the other hand, you can understand it if it's really serving pedestrian safety, because, I mean, at some point maybe they will get used to it, but now, of course, it makes a difference because you're probably really overheard. Very beautiful, by the way, inside the city of Oslo, and today it's Saturday, so we don't have too much traffic here too. And especially for the city, this vehicle is very suitable. Also imagine here standing at a red traffic light. I mean, there are those start-stop functions, but then again the vehicle starts rolling again, more exhaust fumes in the city, and especially to keep all of the emissions outside the city. I mean, you always have to discuss, yeah, the energy for the electric wheels has to produce somewhere at some point, and also the batteries are really cost intensive and resources intensive to produce. But at least there we can agree on that we keep the emissions out of the cities where the most people live and where, let's say, the thinnest air is. So this is, I think, a very crucial point for that. Also, with the good overview this vehicle is delivering, you have a good feeling inside the city, you're pretty agile here, and again, you know, speed always when you need it, and of course silence when you want it. So I think especially for narrow cities here, especially in Europe, this is very suitable. And I would say we can also give you some more insight when the car is running a little bit faster. Also talk about the recuperation modes. So let's head out to the countryside. Here in the turnabout, you feel it's not the most agile car. It is more focusing on this high seating position. It is more an SUV seating position, I would say. It's great for traveling. I can feel it already now because you have this wide windscreen view and you have a lot of room here also in the windows. And when you think of sportiness, you see here in the slalom, the car tilts, so it's rather set on the straight comfort run. If you compare the competitors, for example, the BMW i3 is way sportier, for example, in the driving feeling. On the other hand, you can say it's maybe at some point too rough from the suspension. So this one here is set for the comfortable, calm riding, which is basically okay, you know, they have to decide before the setup at some point. I'm starting here in the normal D mode, normal drive mode, and when I leave the throttle, the car recuperates, so brakes a little bit. So we have discussed this quite a lot of times, the different recuperation strategies, and I'm just going to sum up again the different philosophies. Tesla and BMW, they have their braking system separately. You use the brakes, you only use the brakes. If you want to recuperate, so gain energy again back, then you have to use the different recuperation modes. Volkswagen with the e-Golf, Kia, Soul EV, for example, and also here you can also recuperate with the brakes. And the e-Golf is the only one which has this sailing function. If you want to sail here, so no recuperation at all, you would have moved to the N, the neutral mode. That's what I'm doing right now, so I'm only rolling. I'm not sure if you would do that really often when you drive the car. Usually you stay in the D mode, not sure if you want, but it's possible. That is basically possible. In the e-Golf you can have a mode where you can sail without going to neutral. Here again, as in the Kia Soul EV, you leave the throttle and have a little bit of recuperation. And then there's something which is very unique to the Opel Ampera-e, right at the steering wheel at the left side where you have shifting pedals usually. You can press this or pull it, it's rather pulling, and then the car is recuperating quite strongly. And this effect is even stressed when you're in the so-called L mode, and I can shift back basically in the L mode. You can maybe translate it with loading mode maybe. Then we have a bigger recuperation when we leave the throttle. And the biggest recuperation would be leaving the throttle and going for this handbrake. Then you have the maximum. So the recuperation modes would be in how strong they are: D, L, D plus, so D plus holding the pedal here, and then the strongest L plus holding the pedal here. That would be, from low to big recuperation. It's a very interesting concept, and for me personally, I prefer if there is a sailing mode, like in the e-Golf. For example, BMW or Tesla say we don't want to have this sailing, we want to teach the customer to keep with the one pedal driving. And I'm not sure if that's the right way. I think you should leave the customer the choice, because some might prefer the one pedal driving. It's also possible here, if you are at the moment here in the L mode, then you can basically control the whole car just with your right foot and don't use the brake at all, unless it's an emergency situation where you need more braking power. Or you go for the D mode, have less resistance. That's what I would be preferring, because I don't really like the one pedal feeling. I like basically a new idea that you can do that, but somehow when I leave the throttle, I get a feeling of freedom. I want to just roll, sailing a car, rolling a car, just that feels good. And I think that should be included also in this car here. Here it's more like in the Kia Soul EV that you have a little of recuperation there. But I find the idea very interesting here with the brake or recuperation at the steering wheel, because then you might think about, that it makes more sense maybe with the one pedal driving, because it's just funny to do it somehow. You let go of the throttle and then you want to recuperate a little bit more. It's very easy just to pull this this button here at the steering wheel. What's that? Motorcycle right in the field? Someone doing a picnic? Is it art? Strange. Things happen. So, welcome to Norway. Yeah, I mean, it's really a pleasure to drive this car here in Norway. It's a Kia Soul EV, by the way, here, which we were talking about. Because we see a lot of electric vehicles here. 1/3 of the new registrations already electric vehicles here. In the roundabout. It is fun to drive the car because you have an instant acceleration. That's with almost every electric vehicle. I mean, just think about the figures again. To 100 kilometers, 7.3 seconds or 62 miles an hour. And to 50 kilometers an hour is 3.2 seconds. And that's really fast. I mean, so especially in the low acceleration areas. And again, it's really funny just that you can press something at the steering wheel and the car is decelerating. That feels a little bit like, arcade games in a computer racing game or something like that. So this is a thing, and something, why not? You have basically redundant features how you can recuperate, leaving the throttle, going on the brakes, and also using the pedal here at the steering wheel. So I mean, why not? So you can, as a customer, you have the choice. If you would then also have the mode for full sailing when you leave the throttle, basically, then you could basically do everything. There's another journalist guy overtaking me, but I'm always sticking to the speed that is allowed. I don't want to get any speeding tickets from Norway, and we can see it in the instruments also. 80 at the moment is allowed here. I'm driving 83, so if you look at the GPS, it would then be 80 for real. That's allowed still. So I like it that they have different functions for the recuperation features, and then again, driving feeling more with this upright seating position. Good overview. Well, for tall people, you could say that maybe the windscreen could be a little bit more open right there. Then again, I don't have to use the shield here, the cover that often, because the top part of the windscreen has also this blue shade and is also protecting against the sun, so it's also a very handy feature. Overview to all of the sides is pretty okay because all the windows stand pretty much upright, and it's also a rather small car, so you have a good feeling of where the car is actually ending. And of course, we're doing a range test here too. There are different cycles. One states 520, the other 380, and from this European cycle you usually deduct 1/3 of the range, and then you get the real range. that would be 350. And that is something which at the moment it looks like would be pretty realistic. So I think we started about 330, 340. The car was not charged fully, so there was something left still. And at the moment we're about 320 kilometers of range, and we can already estimate that the so-called range anxiety will probably be passed away, with this vehicle, and not only in Teslas, because so far those ranges are only scored by Tesla vehicles, which are way higher in the price, of course. By the way, if you think about road noise and insulation thing, is that this road here is not a very totally smooth tarmac. It has a rough surface, probably that's also resisting in winter. So it's a little bit louder than some of the other roads we're testing usually. But comparable to the roads, for example, we had on Mallorca with the e-Golf. So it always also depends on which roads are you actually driving on. At the moment, keeping rather steady speeds, that's, the electric vehicle is basically okay if you don't have too much acceleration. But then again, this vehicle is also often used in the city run. And then on the other hand, you can say you can also use the recuperation features, for example. We can also set the cruise control. You do that here with the buttons on the left side of the steering wheel. Also heated steering wheel at the side of the steering wheel. Those buttons here, they feel a little bit strange as they are hidden behind this rubber mode. But you get along with them. So when I, for example, set the speed now, the car's just holding speed in, I can very well relax. Well, it seems that the speed limit is gone now here, so we can maybe drive a little bit faster too. But then again, I mean, if we have a realistic range test, we also don't have to drive too fast, actually. As for the wind noise that are coming at 100, we have surely experienced better vehicles in this case. This is of course a vehicle that is not exactly laid out for high speeds. So I think, for example, with the Golf, we had a little better result there, but the Golf is also maybe more optimized for higher speeds in general as a vehicle concept itself. So overall, I think we can take a lot of positive elements from driving, interesting recuperation situation, and the range already seems promising. Later on, with our conclusion, we will tell you what we really scored then after we have driven longer and longer and longer. But so far, I think also a good vehicle for traveling, as you have this range and you have this upright seating position, and you can also vary in the seats a little bit. The only thing maybe on the negative side is what I've told you earlier, that for very tall people and also with need a wider seat maybe, the seat is not too wide, and I felt it already the first time at the motor show, and I can also just underpin that here while driving. They could be a little bit wider, the seats, maybe also a little bit longer for taller people. That would be something that is still on my wish list here for the Opel Ampera-e. And now the conclusion for today, Opel Ampera-e, or of course most of the things will also count for the Chevrolet Bolt. From the exterior design, they didn't want to scream out, "Hello, I'm an electric vehicle," just rather a normal minivan or a compact van. And I think that's really okay. It's a contemporary design, although of course in a very sports car design sense, for something like that, it's not really a car which screams out, "I want to have a design price," for example. But if you compare the other electric vehicles on the market, some look pretty similar just from the basic form, because it also makes sense to build the car in this very form. From the interior design, they found some good solutions from materials, the white materials, for example. The widescreen format of the infotainment screen also looks good. I'm more a fan of car infotainment systems. Here they said we go all about mirroring the smartphone, but I can also understand that. And if you do that, in a consequent way and just offer that, then, it also, again, makes sense. Some of the materials could be better from a build quality. It surely does not come to the build quality of a BMW i3 or Volkswagen e-Golf. You can rather compare it with the competitors of the Nissan Leaf or also with the Renault Zoe. From the room you have in the interior, that is really very good, especially in the rear. You have a lot of leg room considering the car is rather small, and also better, for example, more room, also a little bit longer than the BMW i3. Then the range, I think if you take 350 kilometers, that is really a realistic range overall. It always depends. You can have a lot bigger range, but also maybe a little smaller. It depends always on the conditions. But I think it's in a region where range anxiety does not play a major role anymore. Then it's more about the original purchasing price and also about where can you charge your car. Do you have a basement garage where you can install a wall box? Can you charge at work, for example? What are your possibilities to charge? That is, I think, then the main question. Price-wise, I see a problem that this car is more expensive than the BMW i3 and the Volkswagen e-Golf, because those two cars, quality and driving-wise, are more desirable. However, if range is your deciding factor, then this one outnumbers them all, because the only other way you can get that one is with Tesla. And for Tesla you can get three of the Opel Ampera-e instead of one Tesla. So this is definitely a crucial factor, and they also put a lot of emphasis on it. It might be possible when they can build more of those cars, and that the demand is going steady, because at the moment they can sell more of those cars. They don't have the capacity, the building capacity actually. People are demanding this car, so it does already work on the market, but they cannot deliver so many cars. And when this stage is over, maybe they can also go lower with the price, because at the moment, if they can sell more cars and they can actually deliver, they can also say, we just stay at this very price because people are buying it anyway. For a mass market, I think they have to go lower with the price on the long-term run. Those are our thoughts here for today. And in general, we can say we always enjoy electric vehicles. We enjoy it more and more silent, with a good sporty riding feeling, still enough power. And when we on the long term also improve how the batteries are being built, that they are more sustainable also in the building process. Later on also reusing. 8 years of warranty from Opel, by the way, on the battery, so you don't have to care about that. I think overall it makes sense on a long-term run to think about new ways of transport. So thanks again for tuning into Autogefühl. Your comments please now about electric mobility in general, the Opel Ampera-e, and also about the competitors we've mentioned. I hope we could give you a little insight on Norway, electric mobility in general, the market right here, the Opel Ampera-e, Chevrolet Bolt, and all the other competitors. Hope you enjoyed that with me, and also tune in to me or my colleagues in Autogefühl for the very next episode.